Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining. Going to run through a bit of an intro to PLM today, or sort of specifically a little bit more about Windchill, really, and Windchill focus, but an introduction to PLM, what it is, why it's important, how it can benefit you and your businesses, and some of the key features that relate specifically really to Windchill, but PLM in general. So we put this webinar together for a couple of different reasons, but we have many customers, thankfully, and we have all of those customers cover different stages of maturity and different sizes. We have customers without PLM, we have customers with PLM, some with PDM. We're going to talk a little bit about the differences between those two, and we have customers without data management at all. So the idea of this webinar is really to give everyone a bit of a holistic overview, no matter where you sort of are on your journey of PLM, and it is a journey, and we're going to talk a little bit about that, but how it can be of use to you as a business and where to get started and that sort of stuff. So a little bit about myself first. If I move on to the next slide. My name's Rory. I'm a customer success manager here at PDSVISION. I've been at PDSVISION for just over 10 years now. It's my 10th year this year. So I was back here when it was still Root Solutions, but we've done PDSVISION. I come from a tech background, mainly focused in sort of CAD and augmented reality, but also got experience with PLM, IoT, and some of the other PTC tools as well. I have quite a heavy focus on pre-sales at the moment, but my main focus really is engaging with our customers and our technical team and ensuring that you are all getting the most out of the software that you purchase from us or are looking to purchase from us. But that's a little bit about me. I don't want to spend too long with me. Let's have a look at what we're going to cover today, or what I'm going to cover. So first and foremost, the structure may have changed around. I think I've swapped a few slides around, but the contents itself is exactly what you see here. So I'm going to first of all talk a little bit about a product. PLM is very product focused, so I wanted to paint a clear picture to everyone, no matter how experienced you are, of what a product is in the customer's eyes versus what it is as a business perspective. A little bit of a high-level introduction about what PLM is. And then going to talk a bit about what PDM versus PLM. What are the differences? We often see a little bit of confusion from our customers and understanding the differences and where one sits and where the other starts and that sort of stuff. Going to talk about what sort of industry challenges our customers come across and that we hear from our customers. How Windchill or PLM looks to solve these challenges. I then want to specify or go into a little bit more detail on how Windchill thinks about data. Okay, when you've got your products and we're trying to manage those, how does Windchill behave and how does it interact? Then going to take a look at a little bit more specific features within the tool itself and run through a couple of those. Finally, then I'll wrap up with a couple of next steps of how you can start your journey with PLM, or if you're already on that journey, what's next? Where do you want to go? We then hopefully I'll have some time for a bit of Q&A at the end. Hopefully I'll also have a colleague of mine joining, Anton, who's a little bit more technical experience, been in the industry for a while. So if there are any more technical questions, hopefully we can cover those. If not, I'll do my best to answer them. And if we don't answer them here today, we will follow up, write them up, and make sure you all get those answers. So if you do want to ask a question, everything's on mute at the moment, but you can use the built-in question function within the GoToWebinar software, and that should come through to us, and we take it at the end. So we'll take all those questions at the end. But let's get started. So I want to talk about, first of all, what is a product, and specifically how it connects to sort of the product life cycle. So if we take the look from a customer's perspective. Okay, maybe I'm in the market for a pump, and I go looking for a pump, and I see the pump 300, and it meets my criteria. I purchase it, I unpack it, and there we go. That in the sort of consumer's eyes, that pump is the product. But if we were to look at this from more of a business perspective, there's a lot more that goes into this product than just that sort of end item. It could be all sorts of different things. There could be additional equipment, such as the power cable, the starting key. We might have some documentation, maybe an instruction manual that goes along with it, or health and safety information. There could be a whole spares parts catalog and all the spares within the business to maintain that. And the customer may also get access to a web dashboard where they can monitor and interact with this pump if it's a smart connected product for example. So all of that is actually what the your company's design, sells, and delivers to the customer, and that's what we call sort of the end product. So there's a lot more that goes into it than maybe what the consumer would think of as the product. And all products that get manufactured and developed, they go through a life cycle. Okay, they all start off somewhere in their conception, and they all run through to end of life, most likely. And that process is a managed and curated process. Okay, and it extends beyond just CAD and design. It can encompass things like simulation and testing and validation, to ensure that we can refine and perfect that product at every step. Once we've done that and we've optimized our product to the best of our ability, we then might want to transition into production planning and manufacturing, where we can turn that vision of our product into reality. We then may pass that on to the marketing and sales teams to ensure it reaches our target audience. And then in the terms of our pump here, we might have a dedicated service department that ensures the longevity of that product and retains customer satisfaction, ensuring that that product works throughout its entire life. And then finally, within this life cycle, a product might come to its end of life, and it's our responsibility as manufacturers that that product is disposed of in a sustainable and environmentally conscious way. So the products that we design and manufacture, they go through this life cycle, and PLM, or product lifecycle management, as a tool, is designed to help us manage that product through that entire life cycle. So if we then take a little bit step back again and just do a bit of a high-level introduction to PLM, or product lifecycle management, as we call it. So as I mentioned just before, PLM is used to control and manage products and processes across sort of every part of a business. We do this through leveraging sort of standardization, improving and increasing reusability, and increasing maybe collaboration internally within our teams, within our businesses. And in regards to PLM, Windchill is PTC's offering, and therefore our offering, as a tool to assist you in managing all of this information. So as I said just at the start, we get a little bit of confusion sometimes between our customers of product data management versus product lifecycle management, and they are two tools. One does a little bit, one does the other, and one is just a standalone tool. So I wanted to clarify a little bit of the differences here, if you're not aware. So we're going to start off with PDM, product data management, and PDM then, it offers us a centralized and managed location for storing data. Typically, this is 3D and 2D CAD data, as well as maybe some associated documentations, spec sheets or something like that, something that's relatable to the product. And a PDM system, it behaves in a similar way to a network drive. If you don't have a PLM or PDM tool, you may be storing your data on a server, on a network drive where people have shared access to. So it behaves in a similar way, but you've got additional layers of control and security over the top of it with a PDM system. So some of that control might be control over dictating who has access to what and what they don't have access to. So you get some user access controls. They'll have tools built in for preventing users from overwriting each other's work. If you're just running off a network drive, it can become a bit of a situation where it's a who saves last wins. If I hit save last, my alterations get saved and yours get kicked out. With a PDM tool, we can help manage and prevent that. PDM tools often come with their own specific features as well. So things like searching, they often have quite extensive searching that increases the ability to go in and find something in the system and retrieve that. I think we all have a lot of data out there, and it can be quite difficult sometimes to try and find that data. So having in-depth searching capabilities is really beneficial. Finally, then PDM tools are primarily used within engineering departments, and they typically don't offer as much use to the wider business. It's not a hard and fast rule, but typically that's what we see. If we then have a look at PLM then, so product lifecycle management. So PLM tools like Windchill, first and foremost, they can do CAD and document management, just like a PDM tool. So if you have a PLM tool, the chances are it can do PDM, all of the things I've just covered there. But its ability also broadens out and widens out to the different parts of your business. And I've just cherry picked a couple here. They might be the important ones. Some of them aren't, but I just thought there's a whole host that PLM can do, and we don't have time to go through it all. So I've just cherry picked a couple out here. So if we take a look at part classification, what this enables you to do is, in business, as I said, we've got a lot of information that we store. Being able to find and retrieve and reuse that data is really important, but you don't always necessarily know what it is you're after. So with part classification, rather than searching for specific part numbers or part names, we can use keywords and attributes of products in order to filter out and find what we require. The classic use case of this is like a bolt. So if I don't know the particular part name of a bolt, but I know I need an M10 thread, it needs to be 50 millimeters long and it should be a cap head, I can use those attributes to help filter down what's already in my system to find what I need, in conjunction with some of the other tools that you see on screen here, like product visualization, which I'll come to. We've also got things like supplier management tools, which allow us to manage our manufacturers and vendors and the parts that maybe they supply to the business. We've got project management tools to help coordinate projects and timescales through Gantt charts and those sorts of things, as well as being able to create sort of controlled environments where we can share and interact with third parties and share information while maintaining control over our IP. Rather than saving a copy and sending it out, we can maintain control over that. PLM or Windchill takes a great advantage of visualization files, or if we take a 3D file, create a lightweight visualization of it, it can help put things into context for users that maybe aren't as familiar with the data that they're working with. And finally, there are also tools in there for manufacturing and planning. So working with an engineering and manufacturing bill of materials and starting to develop process plans and work instructions, maybe leveraging the 3D visualizations in the point above to help aid with communication during those work instructions. As I said, this is just a cherry-picked few topics. There are plenty more features within PLM. We just simply don't have time to go through all of them. But there's some of the examples there. Let's then have a look at some current challenges then without maybe a PLM tool in place. So without PLM, there are plenty of challenges that you might face as a business, including being able to effectively manage your engineering data. As I said, with the use of network drives, you can run the risk of users overwriting each other's work. And without coordination amongst the team, you can lack visibility in who's working on what and when, especially if you've got teams in different geographies across maybe the world or simply in the UK. Without versioning, you can end up with resulting in lost work and a lack of traceability. You don't necessarily know who made a change or when that change was made. And as I say, if something goes wrong, you're unable to revert back to a previous version. That leads on to managing change. So without a PLM tool and having that holistic view of all of your data, managing a change and communicating a change to a business can be very difficult and time consuming, and you can run an increased risk of bringing errors into your system. Another common issue that is voiced and shared amongst our customers is the duplication of data within a business, and this leads to users not having faith in the data that they're working with and questioning whether it is actually correct and accurate at that given point in time. So having a PLM tool can ensure that users are confident in the data that they're pulling from the system. Finally, the scalability side of things, we've got customers from 5 engineers up to hundreds of engineers all using Windchill, but without a tool like Windchill, scalability can be an issue. If you don't have rigorous processes in place, and you stick to those, scaling can be difficult and can show errors in the system. So how can a PLM tool sort of tackle some of these challenges? Well, first up, that we've sort of talked about it already, but Windchill can provide, or a PLM tool can provide, a secure and fully encrypted platform for storing your data in a centralized location, which everyone can have access to. That might be on-premise, on a server in your own facility, or it could be in the cloud, or it could be one of our hosted solutions where we take some of the administration capabilities off your hands, and we can handle those. Users can be notified whenever a new version of a part or a document or a procedure is available, making sure that everyone's working off the current and correct and up-to-date information. With Windchill, we can track the full life cycle of each part. Okay, so you can identify what state a part is currently in, whether that's in work or a prototype stage or whatever that may be. We can identify what changes have been made, who made them, when they were when those changes were put in place, and maybe where that part is used within the business. What products does it end up in? What manufacturing processes is it involved with? Windchill, yeah, as I said, Windchill also excels in managing change, and we offer a full closed-loop CM2 compliant change process, of which you can tailor and modify to suit your needs. We don't have many customers running with a full change process, but you can pick elements that suit your business as it currently stands in time. And then finally, by having all of that centralized location for all of this information, you reduce the amount of risk within the business, and you can increase productivity with things like automated workflows. People are notified as and when they are needed in particular processes and stages of development. So I want to take a little look and talk about how Windchill sees data and how Windchill handles data. If you've not seen a PLM system like this, it can behave a little bit differently to typical network storage, for instance. So I just want to talk about how Windchill sees your data, and then we're going to go into some of the details. So on screen, I've got a theoretical Windchill server. Okay, as I said, that could be on-premise, it could be in the cloud, it could be hosted, but we've got Windchill, and we're going to start leveraging that. So let's say we've got an engineer and they developed a new product. Okay, and that product is the Drill 400. Okay, so they've designed it in CAD, got a couple of drawings, whatever it may be. They need to store it, so we're going to check that into Windchill. When we check that into Windchill, then in the background, we're also going to create what's called WT part. Okay, and a part it represents the real world component within your business, the manufactured part. I'm going to go into those in a little bit more detail, but what we've got on screen here, we've created a part, and we've referenced actually the 3D CAD and the 2D CAD. So we're using both of these elements to describe our Drill 400. The 3D CAD describes its form, fit, and function, and the 2D drawing maybe describes its manufacturing process. I turn away. There we go. Let's get rid of that. We also have other people within the business, okay? So the 3D CAD and the 2D CAD aren't the only things that go into describing a part or a product. There are other bits of information within businesses that go to describing these products. Things like technical publications, maybe manufacturing documentation, there's marketing material, and then there's other documentation. There could be material specs, client information, whatever that may be. So all of that information can also be checked into Windchill. Okay, and then as you'd expect, what we also do is we reference that to the part within the system. So we have all of this information referencing our Drill 400, or our Drill 400 references all of this information that describes it, I should say. Once it's in Windchill, we have full control over it, so everything is version controlled. So if someone makes a change to any of these documents, let's say our engineer checks out his CAD data, makes a modification, and uploads that change, that version increases for that object. And this goes for every single object within Windchill. Okay, so all the drawings, the technical specifications, whatever it may be. There are also other people within the business. that might also want access to this information. So maybe our engineer has some engineering friends that are also helping him out on that product. So what they can do is they can search for the product and then find the associated documents that are relevant to them. In this case, it might be the 3D and the 2D CAD. Maybe they need to make some changes as well. We might have manufacturing, and their requirements are slightly differently. Maybe they're after the 2D drawing, but again, they'll find the product or the part and then in association find the relevant information. It's also worth saying at this point, you can tailor based upon their roles and access rights of what these users see. So maybe our manufacturing engineer here can't actually see the 3D data or any of this other Microsoft Office information. They can only see drawings, for instance. We get to control and dictate what users can see. And manufacturing maybe can only see release data. We don't want them manufacturing something that's the engineers are working on for the next version, for example. Finally, we might have some other enterprise users that need access to documentation, marketing material. I think you get the idea, though. We can tailor the view, and using this part-centric approach, it can dictate and guide people to where they need to find the information. What's really cool about all of this information that we've built into the system, though, is all of that they all have attributes and parameters that we can collate and present at this top level, at this part level. So, who initially created the 3D CAD, when it was last modified, what's its current life cycle state, is it in work, is it released? All of that information can be displayed and is searchable. So if you don't know a particular part name or number, you can use these attributes to help narrow down what it is you're trying to find in the system. So if you know Lucy here designed something in 2022 and it was a fuel type of petrol, you can use these parameters to search the system and find the information you're after. So I wanted to sort of follow on from that and take a look at this part-centric management, talking about that little cog icon that I've just shown you. Go into that in a little bit more detail and what that means and why Windchill uses that as its approach. So a part-centric approach focuses on managing and organizing product information around individual parts rather than drawings or documents. Okay. What that means then is that for every piece of information about a product, it is linked to a corresponding part or a part within Windchill. So rather than tracking individual documents or drawings, we can track the part which references those documents instead. This makes it easier to find information, update information, and actually manage that part through its life cycle, because we can drag all of the associated information along with it. So if we take a look at the part itself, then its technical term is a WT part, and it stands for Windchill Technology Part, but it gets called all sorts of different things. It gets called cog items, parts, WT parts. I'll probably refer to it as the part for the majority of this presentation. But specifically what it is, it's a data-based object that represents the physical component or assembly within a structure of a manufactured product. And the part is used as a container for all information that describes it. Okay, so again, we talked about 3D CAD, that sort of stuff. Okay. So in our example here, we had the drill 400, and we had all the other information describing it. So we've got a visualization file, which maybe is derived from the CAD. We might have some requirements that are associated to it. We've got 2D drawing, all of these sorts of things. They all reference that part. So WT parts are also objects used to build product structures, i.e. the bill of materials. And again, these parts don't contain the information, but they reference the information. So we can start building up these structures, and from that we can start deriving our bill of materials and those sorts of stuff, which we'll come on to. So by having a focus on parts rather than documents and drawings, let's say, we're better able to track and maintain a detailed record of a component through its entire life cycle. Users of the system will always have access to the latest and most accurate part information, and they can easily tell what state that part is in. Okay, This can lead to increased productivity because users are confident in the information that they're pulling from the system is correct, and ultimately lead to better quality in the products that we produce. Okay. Moving on from individual parts, then let's have a look at how we take those individual parts and start working them into a bill of materials, and how we manage that. So BOM management involves creating, organizing, and maintaining structured lists of all product data, ensuring all stakeholders have access to accurate, up-to-date, and traceable information when they need it. So when we refer to BOM management in Windchill, we're typically discussing how Windchill is used to create, organize, and manage and leverage these product structures. Okay, and in doing so, managing these bill of materials, it's sort of central to maintaining accurate and up-to-date data across engineering, manufacturing, and maybe other enterprise functions as well. So typically what we see when we first start using Windchill is these users already have CAD data, so we can instantly start leveraging the CAD data to derive a structured list. Okay, so as I showed in my initial animation, when we checked in some objects, we derived a part from that. We can do the same with these whole structures. So you can see we end up with a sort of a like-for-like representation of our CAD structure. Okay, so we can use this as a starting point. However, these structures can be created manually, or we can import them as well as exporting them as well. But that gives us a starting point. Beyond that, though, obviously we have our CAD data, but our CAD data is not the only stuff that goes into a bill of materials. There are things within a BOM that we don't design and represent in CAD or in 2D. So what we can do is with the structure, we can also build in and add information that isn't part of that CAD structure. Okay, so this could be items such as lubricant, glue, I don't know, paint, things that you wouldn't model in CAD. It could be graphics, maybe an instruction manual like we had shipping out with our pump, health and safety documentation, maybe information from other systems like ECAD, maybe PCBs, those sorts of things, or packaging, the box that our product goes out in, all need to be considered and built into our engineering bill of materials. If it represents and defines your product, it should be in your engineering bill of materials. Down from that, then, as we said, all of these individual WT parts or part in the structure reference their corresponding information that describes that component. Okay. Finally, once you've got control and you've got a fully managed EBOM, or engineering bill of materials, we can then start using that for maybe downstream processes as well. So something that we could do or take a look at is, once we have that control, we can then transform that bill of materials or engineering bill of materials into other derivatives, maybe such as a manufacturing BOM or a service bill of materials. I'm sure you're all aware that the way we design and engineer our products is different to that of how we manufacture them. For example, if you have a composite stack up in your CAD model, all of those individual plies and cores might be represented as separate parts, but in our EBOM. But once we've outsourced that and we bring that into our manufacturing or assembly plant, that may be a single item. So we need to rework this structure into something that's more suitable for manufacturing. So within Windchill, we have the tools and capability to do that. And what's really key about this isn't a save as copy. This is a transformation where we maintain an associativity and a link between these items. So if something does change, and inevitably will change, we can track and identify what impact that change is going to have down in manufacturing if we change it at the engineering level. Okay. So once you've got real control over that engineering bill of materials, then You can perform very accurate where use searches. So if you identify a particular product, you can find out what end items or what assemblies, sub-assemblies that part is used in, what manufacturing processes are involved in creating that component, which enable you to carry out extensive sort of I've just forgot the word, impact analysis on a change, let's say. Okay. We can also export this information. Once we've got confidence in that engineering bill of materials, we're happy then to export it and maybe push it down into an ERP system or an MRP system. Okay. As well as start working, as I mentioned, and developing our manufacturing process plans from that data. So there are lots of benefits of having a well-maintained and accurate bill of materials that go beyond the list that you see on screen here. If we take a little step back, I wanted to follow on with the part-centric and BOM because it followed on quite nicely from that first initial of animation of how Windchill thinks about your data. If we now go back to sort of CAD and document management, we sort of covered it a couple of times already in passing, but it is a really key aspect of Windchill, and is traditionally where people tend to start when first adopting Windchill or a PLM tool, is getting this data in order, because this data is the key to having everything else work that we've just talked about. So when it comes to CAD data management, compatibility is important. So Windchill not only handles Creo data, but we can also handle data from a wide variety of other vendors. So SolidWorks, NX, CATIA. If you've got separate parts of businesses that use different CAD vendors, CAD software, we can manage all of that information within Windchill. Access and storage, as I said before, Windchill offers that centralized location to store all of this data and have users access it. Again, as we mentioned before, we can now perform where use searches. Once we've got that bill of materials in place, we can easily dictate and find out where a product or a part is being used throughout the business. Everything is version controlled and maintained, so we can go back and identify who made a change, what change they made, and when that happened. And we can also layer on automated workflows. So as a part progresses through its life cycle and it maybe changes life cycle state from an in work to a release, we can assign approvers and reviewers and have that automated and notify those users as those products and parts progress through their life cycle. Very similar approach with document management. Okay, so again, a centralized location for storing and accessing all of that information. Is just like we can with part structures, we can have document structures. Okay, so this is a logical hierarchy of documents, which makes it easier to locate and manage, and can also simplify more complex documentation as well. Just like before, we've got automated workflows for progressing the life cycle as well as version control there. Down at the bottom there, we've got integration. So Windchill actually can directly interact with some familiar applications like the Office suite. Windchill can be built into the user interface of Office. So you might have people within the business that don't need to access the full version of Windchill, but can still interact with it and upload information via an interface that they're familiar with, or through their Windows Explorer. So dragging and dropping files from their desktop, let's say. Finally, then, we just want to have a run through of change management, another really key feature of Windchill, and can have a really big impact on how you function as a business. It's a really key aspect. So in Windchill, change refers to the structured processes and tools that manage alterations to a product's design, manufacturing, or service data throughout its life cycle. Okay, so within Windchill, we have a fully closed loop CM2 compliant change process, and that can be broken down into 5 steps, which I'm going to cover at a reasonably high level in a second. But I think it's worth mentioning that we have this fully compliant process, but you can configure that and tailor that to how you as a business function. We don't actually have many customers leveraging that full closed loop process, but we can pick and choose and tailor it to match you as a business. So without a PLM tool, managing change can be incredibly challenging, and it can still be challenging even with a PLM tool, but especially without. So we see it within a customer base and outside of that with prospects of how people manage change. And it can be an ad hoc method, spreadsheets, email, which can lead to miscommunication and inconsistencies in how change is progressed through a business. There's no specific way. It's kind of thought of as and when the problem arises. A lack of traceability, so being able to go back and audit a change and why that's been made, which links to the bottom of compliance. There are certain industries, especially within maybe pharmaceutical or aerospace and defense, where there are particular standards you've got to adhere to when carrying out a change within the business and having full traceability of that. So Windchill has a lot of tools that you can leverage that are already built in to ensure that you are complying to industry standards when it comes to change. And then collaboration. How do you effectively sort of communicate changes across the business? Maybe you've made a change in engineering. How do you make sure that reaches people in manufacturing correct and up to date? So I want to talk a little bit about the change process at a very high level. So as we said, in Windchill, we have a fully CM2 compliant process, and this sort of highlights the individual steps. But again, we can cherry pick, or you can cherry pick, which elements of these to a certain degree to match your business's requirements. So the first step then is identifying a need for a change or a possible change. So we could either create maybe a problem report or a deviation or waiver. Maybe we need to alter something in the business. A product didn't come in, we had to change supplier or maybe something like that. So we can create a problem report or something along those lines to bring this perceived issue to the business's attention. But that's step one, identify the problem. Step two then would be to investigate that problem. So we could review the problem report and evaluate maybe the business justification of carrying out that change. And if we think it's something that needs to be addressed, we can then maybe create a change request. Okay. And at that point, we could actually maybe solve a couple of problem reports that maybe have been identified at stage one. We can collect 3 or 4 problems and we can fix them all with one change. So once we've investigated that need, we then move on to step 3, which would be planning. Okay, so we'd review the change request that we created at stage 2, and we could then start to develop an implementation plan. How are we going to tackle this change? Who needs to be involved? Which individuals? What products need to be altered? Maybe what manufacturing processes need to be adjusted? And who's involved? Who needs to who needs to sign off? Who needs to approve this work? That sort of stuff. Once we plan that out, it would then be time to implement the change. Okay, so this is all about executing that implementation plan that we defined and making the necessary changes. So at this point, Windchill really comes into its own because it can handle all of those tasks, all of those individual steps that are required from the business to complete this change process. Windchill can take control of that and start notifying and progressing this information through the business. So maybe you've got a situation where step 3 needs to be executed, but before that, step 1 and 2 have to be carried out first. Windchill can understand that and ensure it only notifies the people as and when they need to get involved with that particular process. So then once we carried out that, the final thing to do is then to release that to downstream. So we might want to, first of all, do a bit of an audit, change audit, review everything that's been carried out, make sure it's all up to spec, and then we can release that out to the downstream. And maybe that's releasing it into systems such as maybe your ERP system or notifying suppliers maybe. So at a very high level, that's the change process. And as I said, we can cherry pick and tailor this to specific businesses' needs. So the advantages of running change then within Windchill. Okay, obviously we've got that centralization. So all of our information, our CAD data, the documents, it's all in a single location, which means if we need to come back and review anything at any given point, all the information is there ready to be reviewed in isolation. You haven't got information all over the place in different systems. You've got those automated workflows to notify users as and when they need to get involved with the process, and also automate the progression of the process itself. That sort of leads into the collaboration side of things as well. We've also got connectivity for once we've made the change, how can we inform the wider business of that change and progress it further. And then finally, because of all of the things we talked about beforehand with getting your engineering bill of materials in place and having all of those associated links, change within Windchill at the start, it becomes very easy to perform an impact analysis because you can identify a component or something that needs to change, a document, and you can find out what impact that change is going to have across the business. Let's say if you've got a document that's got a spelling mistake in, you can quickly do an impact analysis to find out whether maybe that document's just used internally and we can go ahead and make that change without an issue, or maybe that document is translated into 15 different languages and there are thousands of copies already out there in the world. So that's going to impact whether you commit to a change or decide to handle the problem as and when it arises from your customer base, let's say. So what can we do next then? What are the next steps for you as a business, no matter where you are? So if you haven't started and you've not got a PLM tool or a PDM tool, the first stage is pretty much always to start managing, getting your data in order, or getting your house in order, as we like to call it. So getting your CAD data, your documents, ECAD maybe, and get that stored and controlled within a PDM tool. That could be a dedicated PDM tool, or our suggestion would always be, and something to consider, is a PLM tool such as Windchill that can do PDM. So as and when your business is ready to expand, progress, and maybe leverage this data in the wider business, you're not having to migrate from a standalone PDM tool into something like a PLM tool, which can be extremely costly depending on how much data is already in the system and those sorts of things. So, but the first step is get your data in order. Next then would be to move into more of these PLM processes that we've covered today. So getting your engineering bill of materials up and running, maybe looking at some configuration or engineering change management, BOM transformation, converting from engineering bill of materials through into a manufacturing BOM or a service bill of materials. There was a couple of other extra bits at the bottom there that we haven't talked about: security labels. We talked about access slightly, talking about you can have users and groups and limit what they can see within the system. Security labels enables you to go the next level of marking particular objects or particular bits of data within Windchill with security labels, preventing users from accessing specific documents and things like that. We've also got Windchill Navigate, which is a tool for extending PLM to the wider business, really. If you've used Windchill before, it has its own interface, and for infrequent users, that interface can take a little bit of time to get used to. So Windchill Navigate gives you a sort of a portal into the PLM tool, so you can access the data, but in a much simpler and user-friendly way. So from there, then it would be moving into some more enterprise PLM, okay, and some of the more advanced topics that we haven't covered today, apart from we've got a couple in there, maybe like the manufacturing process planning that we highlighted loosely, but these are topics for another day. But this is something we've done for a long time. We've gone with customers from no PLM right through to enterprise PLM and every stage of that journey. And it is a journey. You have to start sort of down here in order to get to here. And this isn't a 5-minute thing. These things can take years, depending on how quickly you as a business can move. Is normally the limiting factor there. But along this journey is the path that we typically advise. Okay, so that brings me on to the Q&A. Let's see if I can find the questions, if we have any. And it looks like Anton's answered the other question, so I think we're pretty good. I say, if you do have any questions, please do feel free to stick them in the question box or in the chat box, whichever you find access to. But if not, we will write them up anyway and make sure everyone gets access to any of these questions. And we also do have some frequently asked questions that we get from our customers. So no doubt we'll include those in the Q&A sheet as well, and make sure you get access to that to answer any questions. But again, if you have anything specific you want to reach out to us, please do either reach out to your account management or give us a call. I'm sure we'll be able to forward you to the right person at that time. So yeah, I think that's it from me. So thank you all for listening and joining. And if I don't speak to you then, have a nice Christmas, everyone.